It is Wednesday, January 21st. I am Michael Rigsby inside the FloRacing and Dirt on Dirt studios, and it feels like I was just sitting here not all that long ago previewing the Wild West Shootout and talking about the upcoming Chili Bowl, and bam! Both of those things are over in an instance. We are now into late January, and you can kind of start to see February around the corner a little bit. So for about the next 30 minutes or so, I'll recap what we saw out in Arizona as the Wild West Shootout returned to its original home. And believe it or not, I guess if you want to call it, I'm going to use air quotes here, if you want to call it Speedweeks, that starts tomorrow. Tomorrow, Speedweek starts at Volusia for the Sunshine Nationals. We'll go over that. Start to look ahead to all the things that are Florida and Georgia coming up as we dive into everything that really is January and February. The entire country was just treated to the sweet, sweet sounds of Ben Shelton and Dustin Jarrett as they announced every single, I almost said minute, but every single second of the Wild West Shootout in the desert. Boys, I welcome you guys in now. I have so much to get to with both of you. Let's just have a good old-fashioned Rigsby, Ben, DJ rap session that we would normally have after an event about everything in the dirt late model world and beyond. I'm going to start here. Kane, let's throw this up first as we welcome in Ben Shelton and Dustin Jarrett. Let's throw this up first. Here are the Wild West Shootout winners from the mini-series in Arizona. Ricky Thornton Jr., Hudson O'Neal, Ethan Dotson. I think it might be the biggest win of his career, if I'm being honest. Hudson O'Neal again, Garrett Alberson, and Bobby Pearson. Leave that up, producer Kane, because look at that lap money these guys won. RT wins $13,000 with $38,000 on the opening night. Bobby Pierce goes over $51,000. Hudson O'Neal also earned $13,500 in bonus money on January 10th and the 18th. So you basically had, 5 different winners out there. Hudson's the only guy that repeats. Bobby didn't get one till the end. JD didn't get one at all. A pretty hefty, star-studded winners list that we had right there. Let's react from the highest level. First from you, Ben. Give me your overall reaction of what we just saw out west, and DJ, you go after him.
Well, for me, the Wild West Shootout came back home and it was reborn. I mean, it's where the event started 20 years ago. I thought it was fantastic. Record crowds, again, the 20th anniversary, and pretty much record weather for the last 4 rounds. It was a little windy and cool the first 2 rounds, but the last 4, you couldn't ask for any more any time of year, much less in January. And, last but not least, there was just a vibe out there, and it feels like racing has a strong heartbeat to start 2026. Hopefully this is something we can continue.
I echo everything Ben said, and going back to that graphic, I'll mention something that Ben and I talked about actually at the house on one of the off days, and that's parity is what makes any sport great. I especially think that's true in racing, right? And so we had 5 winners in 6 races for the first time in 12 years. And so I think that's pretty awesome, right, to come out of the gate and it's not dominated by any one driver. You don't have anybody go out there and win, 4 of 6 or 3 of 6, whatever else. Hudson O'Neal, as you mentioned, Michael, was the only guy to win 2 races. And again, let's not forget, there were a lot of guys that ran really well that didn't have a dub to show for it, like Davenport and Dustin and even, some of those regional stars like Jake O'Neal. So parity is what makes any sport great, but racing especially, I think, more than any other sport, and we saw that out there.
Ben used a term I've never heard before, record weather. I like that term, Ben. Record weather. You've heard record crowds, record purses. It was. Let's quickly hit on the Arizona Phoenix aspect of this, guys. It just is. First of all, there is a big racing population in that area, right? You go back to Manzanita back in the day, and the bottom line was it's 70 degrees every day. It just... As much as I loved Vado, as much as I love Royal Jones, as beautiful as that facility is, guys, I think it just proved out it belongs in Arizona, that the racetracks come away. And DJ, I'll let you go first. It just was the right move. We thought it before, and now we really know it after, I think.
I was standing by Royal Jones after the races Friday during one of our post-race events, talking to him. He even admitted it, right? He said, he told me himself, unprovoked, he said, you know what? He said, I loved having the event at Vado. He said, but we couldn't have it there. By the way, I went back and looked the lows at Vado for those 6 nights. The warmest low or the highest low was like 32 degrees. It was 4 of the 6 nights. The low was in the 20s at Vado. And so, so having it back in Arizona for those record highs is just, it really truly was incredible.
Yeah, it's the home of the event. DJ said it. And Royal told me the same thing. Royal goes, He goes, the first 2 days we get here, and if you know Royal, He goes, we get here and the wind's blowing and it's kind of cool. And I'm like, we could have stayed in Vado for this. He's like, and then we get here on Wednesday, and I'm like, we could not have got this in Vado. So, he goes, in this crowd, look at this crowd. This is unbelievable, So I want to give Royal a major shout out on that, because obviously, it cost him money, the event leaving. It cost a signature event being there. He has a lot of great events there, but he didn't sugarcoat it. He's like, this was the right decision, and it takes a big man for that. And that was a big reason. He's the Grand Marshal. He's an ambassador for the sport. And, for him to own up that, not even own up, but just to be honest, like, this was the right call. This is where this event should be.
I'm calling in record weather for the PDC this year, Ben. I made a note of that. I'm calling it in. You guys touched on it a little bit, and we both did. Bobby Pierce only gets one win. This guy has dominated the Wild West Shootout, right, the last 4 or 5 years. Jonathan Davenport gets shut out. I think by any measure, I think Ricky Thornton Jr., the other one, by any measure, JD and Bobby are 2 of the top 3 dirt late model drivers in the country. I don't think anybody would argue that. It does speak, and DJ, you talked about the parity a little bit. The fact that those guys didn't just go out there and dominate it, I think 2 things are true. One, the competition level was elevated, right? There was just more good cars this year. And 2, are we in store for a season where those 2 and 3 guys, maybe Ricky Thornton, don't dominate everything? Either one of you go first, but I want to know if both those things are true. It's a small sample size, guys, but are those things true?
I'm going to go first, mainly because you can't have DJ and I on these podcasts together, because in his last answer, he took half my answer for the next one, because we think it's almost like we spend half the year on the road together.
It's a problem that we've got. You 2 are morphing into the same human, I think, actually. So,
oh, man, if you like us, it's good. If you hate us, there's plenty of those. It's a bad thing. To reiterate what DJ said, the fact that we had 5 different super late model winners in 6 events says it all. That hadn't happened. Again, as DJ said, that hadn't happened since 2014, which, by the way, there were 6 different winners that year in Tucson. I think what stuck out for me, the racing from the heats to the B-mains to the features, was maybe as intense as I've seen in a long time. And it felt like there were 6 to 8 winning contenders on any given night for the win. And maybe, just maybe, the playing field is growing with more nightly winners for 2026, because let's be honest, the past few years, it's been a handful of guys. With all that said, I'm optimistically hopeful that what we saw in the desert sets the tone for, 2026 as we head to Florida, Georgia, and beyond.
I'll be the first to admit that I think it surprised me more than anything that, Pierce waited until that very last race to win. And as a matter of fact, on that very first night, he was like 14th or 13th.
Yeah.
And so actually, I think Ben and I went back to the house. We kind of looked at each other, right? We're like, oh man, like was Pierce even there, And as much as we said that, I know that Bob and Bobby and Austin, that whole team, right? They were doing that tenfold, trying to figure out what they needed to do to get better. And then the same thing with Davenport as well. But in the same token, that's why so many of these guys go to the Wild West Shootout too. We've really beat the drum about this being the spring training for racers, and I do just wonder how much of this was new race cars, a little bit of R&D, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. Oh, by the way, at a venue that most of these guys had never turned laps on as well. So I'm not really ready to sit here yet and say, oh man, JD's going to have a down year. Pierce is going to have a down year. I do think that surprised me, though, that between the 2, they only won 1 of the 6 races.
Suave, Derek Kessinger, he used to work for us, used to have a joke, and he would say this very jokingly after a good guy had a bad night. Does he stink? Does Pierce stink? He doesn't stink. Okay, it's one Wild West Shootout. Let's get to the Turbo JD thing. When you have an event, guys, that is this long, right? Sometimes you need a spice at the end of the week to get that. And Turbo texted me and he said, you're welcome for the clicks. I've seen a lot in my career, guys. First of all, let's take a look at the incident. Kane, go ahead and roll the incident that led to what I was going to say, where I've seen a lot in my career. This is Turbo and JD in that heat race on the finale night. Listen, we can break down what happened here or not. Probably not the cleanest slider in the history of the world. I don't think anybody's shocked about that. But at the same time, I've seen worse as well. So I'll kind of park my judgment on the side right here. That's one thing, right? What happens on the racetrack. What happens in the pit area afterwards, I don't think I've ever seen this this is like Charlie Schwartz stuff, right? This is stuff like Larry Moore and these guys used to do. Kane, go ahead and roll that. This is afterwards. There's JD parked in front of Turbo's pit spot, so Turbo cannot back in. There's Matt Curl in there officiating, Lance Ladd, the whole crew's there. I don't really know. Let's just play for a minute, Kane. I'll start with you, Ben. Have you ever seen this? And what was the vibe in person of this whole thing?
It was a moment I know I've never personally seen, and it was a moment that I was especially thankful not to be an event owner. I was not envious of Matt Curl and Chris Kearns ends up down there. Somehow Jason Babiak, I think, stayed in the infield during the whole thing. I've got to give mad credit to our producer, Tiffany Swisher, because she caught it from the drone footage. The minute it began to unfold, she tells DJ and I in our talk back in our ear what's going on. And then she gave us a split screen of what was transpiring in the pits while not missing anything on the track. And I'm going to be honest, for me, at any point when Lance walked up, I was like, Lance Landers is about to punch Tyler Erb. And, and he didn't, but I didn't know how it was going to unfold. And I was as compelled as anybody, lastly to me, I mean, it was another sidebar for what could be a really entertaining season with a lot of storylines.
And DJ, I think it was you that said to Tiffany, Tiffany's like, what do I do? And you're like, do not leave this, right? I think that was you that said, under any circumstance, stay on this, right?
That's that behind the scenes stuff that people don't see, right? Yeah. We're calling the race, on one side, and I'm talking to Tiffany on my other, headset or other mic, and I'm saying, stay with this, double box it, the people want to see it. But outside of all of that, I think what stood out to me more than anything else here is the fact that we don't usually see this from Jonathan Davenport, right? Like I could see the roles reversed there 100 times. I could see Turbo parking at Davenport's trailer after the race and just standing there. But we don't usually see this from Jonathan Davenport. He's typically maybe a little more reserved in his interviews. And I think we can all agree Jonathan Davenport is not that guy that's at the center of drama. And so, outside of the slider, outside of the great production and all of that, that's probably what stood out to me most is the fact that there was this kind of, oh shit moment, right? Like this is Jonathan Davenport that's doing this. And so to soak that all in is it was interesting to say the least.
I think too, somebody who knows Jonathan well texted me after the race and said like that when you fire him up, I mean, you saw what he did in the feature, right? I mean, Jonathan, that track is demanding enough. Jonathan was driving his ass off in the feature, and you knew when he got to Turbo what was coming, right? Like you knew it wasn't too bad. He could have cleaned him out and he didn't. But we had to recap that incident. It was one of the more wild moments in dirt late model racing in the last few years. I want each of you to give me just a couple odds and ends, a couple nuggets. Could be about the track, the facility, a driver, the racing. DJ, you go first to recap and put a bow on the Wild West Shootout.
Well, real quick, a couple quick hitters. Of course, we know Pierce won the finale, but let's not sleep on the fact that he led laps in 3 different races before that and never won. We're not used to seeing that out of Bobby. In the same token, Jonathan Davenport, by the way, went 6 races. Not only did he not win, he didn't need a lap. 240 feature laps there at the desert, and JD never led, which is very interesting. And then the last one, I'll kind of stick on this topic of winners. Man, let's not sleep on the fact that that Ricky Thornton Jr. it turns out he's actually really freaking good at this racing thing. Very first time in the Adam Family Motorsports car, and he goes 1 for 1. He goes out and wins that very first race in a car that, other than the practice night the night before, that he had never set foot behind the wheel of.
And listen, I know he loves the Chili Bowl. Ben, before you go real quick, like he's got to be thinking like, I probably could have won a lot of money in Arizona. Like I think he would have won again, right? So I get it. I know, RT, you love the Chili Bowl, Ben, but I'm sure this isn't one of your notes, but I might want to stick around next year for a few more races.
Well, maybe he sells a lot of T-shirts at the Chili Bowl. I don't know. Maybe he just really likes chili. I don't know.
He could.
Now, it made for a good storyline. I wish he could have come back, but I understand he had to get back to North Carolina on Sunday and get the mod ready for a sponsor obligation. For me, Ethan Dodson and that raw emotion of victory, because Ethan was the first one to tell you last year, the last few months of the year, he probably thought every day he got to the shop that his seat was going to be sitting outside. But, John Henderson and that group, they didn't give up on him. And he came out, and when he won that night, it was like, oh, crap, he's up to 5th. Oh, he's in 3rd. Oh, he just passed Pierce for the lead. Oh, he's got a 3-second lead. It was amazing. There were people that, man, I guess I don't understand. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. There's people that criticize enthusiasm. Look, I've been in enough victory lanes where you don't know if the guy just won 20,000 or was told his whole family, had been abducted by aliens. Dodson, you know what? You think you're going to lose you're going to lose your ride? You're trying to keep it. He pounded the roof. I love that. I love the raw motion. The new Rumley clip carve is creating a little bit of headache for the tech people. It's a bolt-on clip. I don't know enough about tech. I've been talking to the people that do. I personally kind of like the thought that it's a bolt-on clip. If you're in Louisiana and you bend one, you don't have to go back to North Carolina or West Virginia eventually, if Rocket goes this path. So that's a big deal. It is a bolt-on clip. I'm a little unclear if they're going to let them run it at Speedweeks or not. I think they may, but it is a big talk. So that's a big thing. Sometimes we have bonuses get added and they don't really do much. Let me tell you what did do much. The Rio Grande lap leader loot.
100%.
And we got the car the first night. The guys that race, get out of the car and you got Ricky Thornton Jr. down there, and he's like, man, when I got past, I was like, gosh, there goes like 10 laps at $500. There goes 15 laps, and then Huddy in second. Huddy's like, how much money to get? That's the first thing he asked Trent and Barry. And he gets back to a trailer and tells Rumley, we got $12,000 in lap leader money. I thought that was really cool. And then, on those lines, the Low Voltage Solutions Hard Work Pays Award for the hard charger, the driver got $500 from Rio Grande hard charger, but the crew got $1,000 cash. Talking to the Kyle Beard crew, you would have thought they'd hit the jackpot in Vegas the night they won it. They're down there. They got $1,000 cash. They got their own little victory doors. I thought that was cool. And then, last but not least, how about Billy Moyer in the booth with us? He was fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't want to break this to you guys today, but you've been let go for Billy Moyer, right? Officially, I thought, before we hit the Speedweeks, I thought I'd let you know. So,
well, he was fantastic. I got to share this one too, because there's a good contingent of people that get upset if we talk about any type of football in a race.
Yeah.
God forbid on a 10-hour broadcast, sometimes we talk about something. But what was funny is I had ESPN.com pull up my laptop. And every time we'd have a caution, Moyer would lean over because obviously there's big playoff games. Sorry about the Bears, Rigsby. And he'd go, hey, what's the score? How's it looking? And he was like so in tune. So I thought it was so cool. You had this Hall of Famer, which you thought would just live and breathe racing. He was all in on NFL football, both Saturday and Sunday. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, I think there's a chance that we see Moyer again this year in the booth at some point, right? We don't have it worked out, but I do think I'd like to work him in there. We got, Randy's got his amazing home in Eldora, and we're not going to touch that. But I think we may see Billy again at some point this year, so keep an eye on that. Guys, switching momentum, believe it or not, Speedweeks, or, kind of the artist formerly known as Speedweeks, as I like to say. It starts this week. It starts tomorrow. The Sunshine Nationals kicks off Thursday at Volusia for the World of Outlaws. Before we get to specifically talking about Volusia, let's take a look at this. What is a 44-day gauntlet, guys? This is the Speedweeks slate. Again, if you want to call it Speedweeks, I got Volusia starting the Sunshine Nationals here. And don't forget, we are equal opportunists. Please watch those events live this weekend on Dirt Vision. You can watch that Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Our good friends at Dirt Vision. Hunt the Front events at Needmore the following weekend. And then through the week, when Needmore's over, I think that's Tuesday, Wednesday at Swainsboro, J.J. Williams Swainsboro track down there. They've got two Hunt the Front events for $10,000 to win. Watch those events live on Hunt the Front. Page 2, because like I said, this is 44 days long, guys. Screven Motor Speedway, a 3-day bonanza at Red Griffin's track for $5,000, $10,000, and $25,000 to win with the Southern All-Stars. That'll be live on FloRacing. And then I think, for me, kind of what traditional Speedweeks is, Volusia 2.0, back with the Dirt Car Nationals February 9th through the 14th. And then, because Lucas moved everything after the Daytona 500, Lucas doesn't get there till February 19th with All Tech Raceway, $10,000, $12,000, and $15,000 to win at All Tech. Bubba Raceway Park, Ocala Speedway now, I should say, on that third sheet there, Kane, if we could. I skipped. I'm not ready for it yet. Henry County is on top of All Tech. I skipped it because I'm not used to it yet. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Henry County Speedway, the Swamp Cabbage 100, then Ocala, and then we wrap everything up in early March, 4th through the 7th, 4 days at Golden Isle Speedway. Ben, I really hit on this with Dustin. I've said now, with the way things work out, 44 days, the gaps in racing, and you saw on that calendar, there's a lot of gaps in those racing. The fact that Outlaws are now on top of Lucas Oil, which I do not like. I've been pretty clear about that. I think this is more of a collection of wintertime races than it is what I would call Speedweeks. Do you think DJ and I are right about that? Because that's how we feel.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. I don't think Speedweeks lives anymore for our sport, not at least in the traditional sense.
Yeah. With
the shift in schedules and what I consider to be a major letdown, I'm not going to hide it. It's a major letdown the national tours go head-to-head during Speedweeks. That
Yeah,
was the beauty
yeah.
of Speedweeks. You never got that. It is what it is. It's what we got now, and there's probably no putting that genie back in the bottle. It's probably never going to go back to where they don't go head-to-head. I absolutely think we just have a collective of racing happenings for almost 2 months. Now, do I think it's very entertaining? Do I think that there's going to be a lot of storylines? Do I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs? Yes. It's just different. I recently joked that what we'll see down there isn't much different than the number of races we see in a similar time frame on the national level from late July through early September. Just so happens with this scenario, we're in Georgia and Florida for 44 days while it's happening.
DJ, I think you hit it when you and I talked. I think I underestimated the absence of East Bay's effect on things. Of course, on the surface, I knew, right? You take East Bay away, as amazing as Volusia is, and I really do love Volusia. I don't want to downplay that. As amazing as Volusia is, East Bay was the heart and beat, the soul of dirt late model Speedweeks. You take that out, I kind of thought we could meander our way through it, and I just don't think you can ever recreate that magic of Golden Isles, East Bay, Volusia, 16 days, bam, or whatever it was. I just don't know that we'll ever recreate that.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And I'll recycle something I mentioned in our video cast a few weeks ago, too, and that's the fact that when East Bay went away, not only did we lose what I think is probably the number one staple in Speedweeks, but we lost a stretch of 12 races in 13 days between East Bay and Volusia, right? Yeah. We don't have that anymore. Now, does Rick Schwally and the group at Lucas, do they get with Bubba Clem at Ocala? Do they look at that? Do they maybe flip-flop Ocala and Alltech sometime on down the road? I don't know. Maybe those conversations happen, and there's a reason why Ocala couldn't be right after Volusia as well to create that stretch. That I don't know, but I think outside of this track that had a legendary history, right, and almost this mythical feel about it, outside of losing that track, that's the biggest thing that we lost, was a stretch of 12 races in 13 days that we don't have anymore.
With that, I do want to pivot to Volusia. The Sunshine National starts tomorrow for Steve Francis's tour. I had to double check. I thought I had this wrong. This is year 6 of the Sunshine Nationals already. I 3 was what I had in my head. The Outlaws kick their points season off tomorrow. I know some guys grumble about starting this early, but I really get why WRG does it. They own this gorgeous facility down there. In this world of programming, you need programming in January. Ben, what do you expect from the Outlaw Tour this year? And also, kind of, what do you expect from Volusia this weekend? There's a 2-part question.
Man, I love Volusia, and I love pulling up there. To me, East Bay and Volusia parking lots make you feel there's nothing else that makes you feel more like Speedweeks than those two. I think it would be extremely naive to say that Pierce is not the Vegas odds-on favorite to race to another World Outlaws Championship this year. But I do think that, as we saw at the Wild West Shootout, the challenges to his reign will become stronger. Hoffman obviously is making gains every year. He's been right there the past few years. Gustin showed a lot of speed out there. And I think Gustin, as good as last year was, I think this year's going to be even better for him. They're worthy adversaries. And we saw McCready find his groove during the second half of the 2025 season. But it's still Pierce the guy to beat. As far as this week at Volusia, I look for Chris Madden to find speed. And man, maybe even a new win with the Infinity by Wells camp. Moyer told me off air out there that Madden was watching the broadcast and calling Dustin and giving some ideas, some things to try. So it's going to be cool to see Madden in that Infinity by Wells house car. And, I think Nick Hoffman, Ricky Thornton Jr., Dale McDowell, and Ryan Gustin, those are the guys that are going to be the league contenders for wins this week. And Pierce might get one. I think Volusia for Pierce is still a love-hate relationship. It's kind of an all-or-nothing place for him. DJ?
Yeah, very similar to earlier. Ben stole a lot of my notes on that. So
come on, you two.
I had the same thing very candidly about Gustin and Infinity, getting a lot of insight from Madden, and so as another part of that is that team going to be a threat to Pierce? Looking at the big picture, right, with the Outlaws Tour this year, and same thing for Hoffman. Man, I really feel like Nick Hoffman is right there. He's right on that cusp of something big. Is that something big? An Outlaws title? Is it a crown jewel at Eldora? Is it both? I think we can all agree that Hoffman, he's right there, and maybe 2026 is the year that happens. couple other things that I'm looking at as well. The driver swaps, right? We've got Big Perm going to the Outlaws. We've got Brian Shirley going to Lucas. I think that's something to keep an eye on, and we might have still one or two more of those as well. We talked about Ethan Dotson earlier. Is this year his coming out party also? And then just looking short term, right? Looking specifically this weekend at the Sunshine Nationals. Man, that event has a really cool history of just different faces in victory lane. You know, Pierce has actually never won an event at the Sunshine Nationals, believe it or not. But the list of drivers that have won, there are some of the more popular names, right? Like Dale McDowell and Nick Hoffman. And, of course, Devin Moran had that stretch where he was really good there, and Hudson O'Neill. But let's not forget Garrett Alberson won 2 of 3 last year. Ryan Gustin won 1. Kyle Strickler visited victory lane there a few years ago, and Kyle Bronson. And so for me, it's what we opened this segment about, and that's the parity in our sport. I would expect to continue seeing some parity this weekend. I would be stunned if somebody went out there and swept all 3 races at Volusia.
You know, I talked to Brian Carter when I was at the Chili Bowl, and Brian said, you know, let's talk about that new clay that Volusia's got. Put it on in October after the season was over. It might have been earlier last year. Forgive me on the date. I'm a little fuzzy. I think it was actually earlier. It was spring, when the Dirt Car Nationals was done last year, they put it in. Remember, Volusia had that issue with clay a couple years ago. They had to kind of tear it off, and everyone that I've heard has said this stuff's phenomenal. So I'll kind of be paying attention to the racing quality this weekend at Volusia. Todd Turner put his spin on the Sunshine Nationals for us. Kane, throw that up. This is specific to Volusia 1.0. Devin Moran is the lone driver with multiple wins in 9 World of Outlaw events at the Sunshine Nationals. The average event car count, 49.2. It had 58 in 2024, so everyone's like, we raced too early. I guess not, guys. There's 50 cars there. There's 50 freaking cars there every year, so I guess we don't race too early. Cody Overton's 23rd to 2nd run last season is the deepest rally in the history of the event. In the world, I actually thought this one was interesting. The World of Outlaw points leader following the Sunshine Nationals has gone on to win the Tour Championship only once. Brandon Shepard in 2024. This is the 6th edition, so they've had 5. It's only happened one time. And only one feature winner, 5th starting Devin Moran, has started worse than 3rd. So basically, top 3 you start in, you're going to be in good shape to win these. And 3 times, guys, 30 cars. Because of all those provisionals and emergency provisionals and points guys at the beginning of the year, 30 cars have started this race 3 times. Quickly, yes or no, too many cars, right, Ben and DJ? 30 out there's too many, right, guys?
It can be entertaining because sometimes that guy who starts 30th, he's a bit slower than the leaders. So sometimes that can make things entertaining. Yeah, I mean, I get early in the year, you want to take care of guys, you want to get them on tour. 30 feels like a lot, but hey,
big track
is also not an Illinois bull ring.
Yeah, big track. DJ 30, give me the Gladiator on 30.
I am not a fan of provisional after provisional after provisional, right? If you got 30 guys that race or win, if your number's set on 30 and that's what you're racing in, I'm completely on board with that. The other thing I will say is that at a track that's got a lot of momentum like Volusia, it can make things really interesting, to Ben's point, for the leaders whenever they catch the back of the field too.
Yeah, going to be fun. I'll be watching this weekend. We'll have highlights afterwards on Dirt on Dirt. I touched on this. Last thing I want to mention with you guys, and then we'll wrap it up with Dustin pre-Wild West Shootout. But I want to hit this again, what you can expect from us while we're in Georgia and Florida. And a caveat before I show you these graphics, so much of the history of the company that I built, and these guys helped me build without question at DOD, and even after Flo acquired us in 2019, so much of the history of that company is ingrained around Speedweeks, taking your entire staff and sending them to Georgia and Florida. But we were able to do that so much more successfully when I could be down there for 18 days and 17 days and 20 days. Now it's 44 days. It just doesn't make sense to do everything every night, every place like we once did. So I'm going to go through now kind of again, and I've adjusted this since pre-Wild West Shootout, how you can expect our coverage to look. So let's start Kane first with this. Guys, don't worry. The drive home does return, and we are going to start the drive home with Volusia 2.0. We aren't going to be able to get down there for the Sunshine Nationals and hunt the front stuff and all that, but we kind of felt like Volusia is the traditional home of Speedweeks, so we're doing it. We'll have drive home. Look at those two guys in the front seat, and look at Ben just hating us from the back seat, DJ. Look at that, just the look on his face right there. We'll have drive home every single night from Volusia 2.0, every night from Alltech, every night from Ocala, every night from Golden Isle. So that's still, guys, I think I counted, it's almost 20 nights of drive home. So plenty of drive home. That's live on the DoD and FloRacing Facebook page every night after those events. Then, from the Lucas Oil events, we will have Speedweeks Minute, so all of Alltech, all of Ocala, all of Golden Isles. And then we will also have race day, usually me and Ben. There we are, Ben, looking all handsome. We will have race day from all of Alltech, all of Ocala, all of Golden Isles. So we will have drive home from everything, Volusia 2.0 and on, and then our traditional Speedweeks Minute and race day that we will have from just the Lucas Oil events. Like we said, the events that we will air live on our network. You can see highlights every night, every race of Speedweeks on Dirt on Dirt. We'll still have highlights from Volusia, highlights from the Hunt the Front event and all that. And guys, I wanted to bring you in to wrap this up. We debated this long and hard. We did not take this lightly. Last year I had DJ driving around with joiners around the racetrack to try to pull. It's 44 days long. It's just, we've been at the Wild West Shootout. It just doesn't work for us to do the entire unloading thing. And I just wanted to get some organic thoughts from you guys. I still think we're going to put our heart and soul in it. Shit, Ben, you and I are down there 28 days. It's not like we're not down there a long time. Either one of you can start. I still think we're going to cover the hell out of Speed Weeks. It's just not the same as it once was, so we had to change it.
You know, for a long time, I hated change of any kind, but I guess I'm aging backwards from that standpoint, Benjamin Button, if you will. Apparently, when it comes to me, it turns out you can, in fact, teach an old dog new tricks. We're evolving the coverage down there, and while the favorite features will still largely exist, and by the way, that drive home graphic, I think I love Rinkin's expression in the backseat. I'd love to know what he's thinking, or maybe we wouldn't. I don't know. He's in the zone.
He'll be on this year again. Don't worry. He'll make plenty of appearances.
He told us last night it was going to be the greatest Speedweeks ever. We're going to embrace the new and do some creative things there. The one undeniable for my seat is that, with this group, you're going to be hard-pressed to ever find a group of people who are more passionate, more dedicated, more versed in everything dirt late model racing. We live it, we sleep it, we breathe it, and a lot of times we cry ourselves to sleep about it. We love everything about it, and we're going to go down there, and I think we got a lot of stuff in store for the next 2 months that fans are going to really enjoy.
Yeah, I don't know that I have any more to add to that other than the fact that, especially that drive home, it's just that's raw. We're four dudes that are driving back from a race, just like any other four dudes would do. We're talking about whatever's on our minds. It's raw. I called out Bubba Clem last year, and then he gave me shit at Ocala when he saw me the next day too. And so it's as raw as it gets. And to Ben's point, we're dirt late model of the bone, and the fact of the matter is that we might have our paycheck signed by Flo, but doggone it, we always got the best interest of the entire sport in mind, and we've all got to work together in this, whether it's Flo, Dirt Vision, Michael Rigsby, Ben Shelton, Dustin, Jarrett. Whoever, right? And so I think that's just, you can expect more of that for 2026, I guess, to put a bow on it.
And I think, Ben, we're illustrated that we debated, right? I think everyone thinks, well, some of that stuff's not live on Flow, so you're not going to do it. We wanted to pay respect to the institution that is Volusia, right? Volusia, particularly the Dirt Car Nationals, obviously a little more in the Sunshine Nationals. It is a Speedweeks institution. And we've known Steve Francis for a long time. And listen, I'm not saying, the drive home is what everyone wants to see, but I do think people like it. And we thought, if we're going to be down there, we're doing it for Volusia. We just are, because it's a Speedweek staple, Ben. And we debated that, and ultimately we settled on, it's not live on Flow, but that doesn't matter. We're going to do it because it's the right thing to do.
No, and I think there's a misconception. I might have, been giving Steve and the gang a little grief earlier about, booking immediately on top of the Lucas deal.
I don't like that. I don't like it, and I've been vocal about it. Yeah,
it is. So. But the reality is, man, our Flow Night in America is, we're making the schedules. We're talking to, we know we own Lucas Oil now, obviously, but we talked to Francis. We have a rain out. I'm calling Francis. I'm calling Sam Driggers. We love those guys. And Tyler Bachman, he's one of my favorite people in the world. So, he's already asked me if I'm going to break into his office again. He's the GM there at Volusia. And I was like, you might as well just leave the door unlocked because I'm coming in. So, we do. And we care about it. And, Volusia for me, Volusia is the quintessential Speedweeks. It and East Bay were like this. Well, now East Bay's gone. These other tracks are really building a strong resume. But, dude, Volusia is the OG. So, yeah, we're excited to do some stuff from there.
And I want to point out, too, Alltech, Ocala, Golden Isles. It's weird, a little bit weird this year. Those events are kind of a month away still. So it's, we're going to get to them. We're going to talk about Joe Kelly and Alltech, right. And we're going to talk about Bubba and Ocala and Steve Stevenson at Golden Isles. There's plenty of content from us coming on those. They're just a month away. So it's a little weird, DJ. We've never had this dynamic, so we're learning a new muscle here a little bit. So
No, it's we're probably going to f something up at some point. We're probably going to mess up. We're
Probably
probably going
have
to have
already.
people call us
Yeah.
out. Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the story of our lives, right? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? But I know that you've got some more video casts planned as well
Yep.
to get to those things. I personally, I love this approach, right? We kind of take it race by race or segment by segment, so to speak, and honestly, I think it gives fans just that little reminder. Oh, hey, we've got Volusia 1.0 going on. Oh, hey, Hunt the Front is racing this weekend at Needmore or wherever else. And by the way, let's not sleep on that big event coming up at Screven, the Winter Freeze here in a
Huge.
few weeks too.
Yeah, and that is the only dirt late model event happening in America that weekend at Screven too. So again,
Yeah.
plenty. We're going to preview that more heavy too. We're going to be doing these video casts, as we said, a little more regularly the next couple of weeks. We'll be back next week after Volusia 1.0 and start talking about those Hunt the Front races, start talking about Screven, and really start to hammer out the Lucas Oil stuff. We'll record that Tuesday, January 27th. Ben, DJ, I know you guys are exhausted after Arizona. I'm going to keep you on and not fire you for Billy yet. I'm going to let you get through 26, okay? I just wanted to let you both know that you're going to make
If
it.
you don't fire us for Billy pretty soon, I'm disappointed in you. I mean, why wouldn't you?
You guys show up, and he's got the Flow shirt on. He looks really, he's got the headset on, the whole thing. So I appreciate it.
I love the thought of Billy Moyer like talking to Tiffany, telling her to keep the double box up of like JD in the pit area, Turbo's pit area, right?
Yeah, he becomes
Yes.
like a sensational. It's like a scandalous media. Billy becomes a media. I like that. Guys, I appreciate that. Thank you. Everybody, we'll see you next week when we record again and preview those Hunt the Front races. Thank you.